The quarterfinals of the major are now in the books, and we decided we weren't going to do a video yesterday because only 2 of the quarterfinals have been played. Better that we have all the quarters finished, then we can discuss the whole thing with all 4 of those games and discuss a little bit of what's going to happen next. But I'm joined by Dualism again, and we'll be getting into our good, bads, and our mares. Dualism, if you could kick us off with one of your positives, please, of those quarterfinals.
I will avoid the obvious, and I will instead go for heroic, because the game against Spirit was very much theirs to lose. I think a lot of the matchups were seen as quite 50-50 and a bit coin flip, so the fact that they were able to dominate, kind of get it done cleanly, was a really promising sign for them.
Yeah, I actually had Cadian in particular from Heroic as my positive because I was very impressed with their performance as well, and I thought that Spirit had maybe a chance to take a map, maybe even make it quite a close game. You never quite know when the crowd's involved and, you know, they're in front of the audience in the playoffs now. But I was so impressed with Cadian. Like, not only did he rise to the occasion, like, obviously the crowd was completely behind him and he really feeds off that kind of energy, but he dropped to 1.24 and had some excellent calls as well. Vertigo in particular was a really impressive performance from Heroic, and obviously he's front and center when that's in the debate, 16-8 win. My concern, though, is going forward, they play Fury next, the crowd's not going to be on his side. Is he going to have the same level of impact? I'm not really sure what to expect from that.
But as you say, he does feed off of crowd energy, and I think it wouldn't be the first time that he's also fed off of the negativity as well. Obviously, we saw Na'Vi come out and try and do the same, but it didn't quite work out for them. But I think Cadian is also somebody who welcomes that villain role a little bit better than somebody like Simple.
Oh, definitely. We've seen in the past, obviously when Heroic were coming under quite a lot of flack, the previous majors and playoffs, etc., and the crowd was getting on their back a little bit. My concern, though, is I don't think he's ever played in front of a crowd like this. Like that today, that was just absolutely mind-blowing. And, you know, he did touch on Na'Vi, so I think that's a good segue as well. Simple tried. You saw a couple times, like, he had his hands to his ears, like, you know, trying to goad the crowd a little bit, but I don't know about you, it just never felt like he really believed it. It felt like he was very timid. It felt as though Na'Vi were just kind of off the boil. And I know people have been talking about them being quite off throughout the Legend stage as well, but I think it was a lot more prevalent in what I was seeing today.
The thing is, Simple was, you know, he had a decent rating coming into the playoffs. I think it was a 1.32, if I remember correctly, but that is pretty average for Simple. For any other player, that is, yeah, top 5 performance. You'd be happy with it, but Simple didn't fully become the complete beast that he really should be, and his tweets where he said, "Oh, Brazilian fans, oh, we're not going to lose, but don't boo us." I couldn't tell whether that was banter, whether that was meant to be a joke, but to me that was just a big red flag. That seemed like there might be maybe being played off as a bit of comedy, but actual kind of fear from them.
I think fear is a good word, because I got that impression, and you know, you talked about his rating coming into the playoffs. His rating after that match was a 0.87, and I can't remember the last time where Simple was rock bottom. He was bottom of both teams as far as I'm aware, definitely bottom of Na'Vi at least, and his absence was definitely noticeable. Bit was trying really hard to pick up the slack. Perfecto had some very big moments as well, but for the most part, Simple did not feel like he was having the impact. He was having the real gravity that you expect from him, a player that can absolutely turn things on its head. There were glimpses, but that was all it was. And although people were already talking behind the scenes about like the whole Sum Dayong situation, probably won't be in the team for that much longer, there's some rumorings of negativity on the squad. Even with all those caveats being said, they're my meh, I think, for this quarterfinals, to be honest. I wouldn't put them in negative because they're against Furia and the crowd was insane, but I think I have to put them in the meh category. Who was your meh category?
I had Cloud9. They had the same issues that they had in Challenger stage with Axile not showing up and just generally not looking as convincing as they really should be on what was widely considered the easier side of the bracket.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised because I thought maybe they would have been your negative, but I suppose Mare does make sense because, I mean, Mouse as well, like, give them a little bit of a nod. They played fantastically, but I feel like I've touched on them multiple times over. Yeah, Cloud9 did feel just kind of mad. You know, I'm going to take it a step further as well, Dualism. I'm not sure if you agree with this, but for me in particular, Exile, I have to single him out. I don't like to single out individual players for negative reasons, but we discussed this in the earlier stages that he was not having the kind of performances we expected from this star rifler. It was the Shiro show. Shiro was trying desperately to carry the team. Exile with a 0.92 against Mouse, once again going absent when they desperately needed him.
I can agree on an individual performance sort of level, but I don't know. On Ancient, there were at least two occasions I can remember where Cave had two members of Mouse watching it. Once was with pistols. I think the other time might have been a buy round. And Cloud9 pushed into it. They didn't use utility. They weren't really clearing the angles. They just walked in and got churned up. And it happened twice in pretty important rounds. And I think that has to then be put on Nafani. I think it's weird to be making those calls when realistically they should have. I don't know. It happens once. Pressure, the mistakes on the stage maybe can be accepted, but for that to happen at least twice, I have to wonder what's going on in Nafani's and I guess Groove's head.
Yeah, I suppose it also raises another question as well. Absolutely, if that's Nafani's leadership style, is that he's very micromanaging and he's telling people where to flash and things of that nature. I do also wonder if it comes down to the players as well to a degree. You know, if he gives more rough roundabout calls and then it's up to them how they take the specifics of it. But obviously, whichever way it's spun, that's not good enough. And I noticed the same things as well. It felt to me the situation got the better of Cloud9. And the crowd was clearly on Mouse's side for the most part. I think that also played into it as well. And ultimately, the post-game interview with Hobbit was quite telling. I mean, he's such a Chad, like he's such a likable guy. And he was really honest. He was brutally honest. And he said that they pretty much rolled over and died on Ancient. Like, they didn't fight. It was the last map of the series. They had every chance to come back and win that. They won the first map. And it just felt as though the situation got the better of them. Players started to just lose their cool, lose their focus, whatever it may be. And Hobbit had a huge performance on that as well. It was Shiro and Hobbit at the end with the two top rating players. So I just come out of that one feeling distinctly disappointed with the Cloud9 performance, because I thought after what we saw on the Legends stage, Dualism, surely they were going to get through to at least the finals and maybe even win the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think the reason I kind of had them as more of a meh than a disappointing is on that first map, it really was that kind of, oh, well, pack it up. Mouse are going to lose. This is going to be a 2-0 for Cloud9. Hobbit's dropping 30 already. He wants his second major. And I think that is a real disappointment that they just kind of ran out of steam but towards the end like that.
So, again, it's interesting. You put them as your meh. So who is your negative in that case, if not Cloud9?
It's harsh. And this might just be because I'm bitter about my pick'ems, but it's Fnatic.
Okay, interesting. How do you feel Fnatic come out of this one in a negative kind of light?
I can respect the fact that they were one of the few teams that were from the open qualifiers all the way to playoffs and probably overperformed compared to what most people kind of predicted, especially going off of the pick'ems that I saw. But I kind of wanted to see more fight out of them. And I think the issue with Fnatic is, while other teams are going to have their Simples, their Zywus, and their star players, Fnatic really does just lack that rock who can just always perform and be their star. And I think when you're going up against a team like Outsiders, where pound for pound, their players are probably better, it is that kind of... It's just a symptom of, I think, how their team is structured. They didn't have someone that they could just pivot their focus onto and to enable to carry the game. They sort of all performed okay, but that really isn't good enough in a major playoffs.
Yeah, while true, I guess I would give them the benefit of the doubt in the sense that this is a team that's still relatively new, and I think the interview with Roy was very telling, where he said, listen, we got past the challenger stage. That basically was our ambitions. Now you could maybe argue is that having a lack of ambition? You know, you're at the major, surely you want to go for broke, you want to win the whole thing. I guess that's the reason why I didn't really think of them in terms of any of the good, bad, or mez. I think overall, if I look back at Fnatic come the end of this major and kind of have an overarching sort of thought process, I say that it's been a very positive major for them personally, because getting through to the quarterfinals, let's be honest, when was the last time that Fnatic were relevant as a team? I mean, that sounds really harsh, but I mean, it's been years now, right? Like, they just haven't been there at this level for so long.
I agree, but then I think when you are a name like Fnatic, you are one of, I don't remember how many organizations have won a major in total, but you're the organization that won 3 majors before it was cool when Astralis did it. You're meant to be a team that should, in my opinion, be at the top. Same for a Cloud9. It's like you have to be almost like leading by example as the big brands of Counter-Strike. And I think, okay, yeah, you made it through Challenger stage. In my opinion, if you're Fnatic and you are players who, at least for the former like Copenhagen Flames guys, they made the major playoffs last time as well. It isn't, oh, this is our first major or this is our first appearance in playoffs. I think it's not unreasonable to expect more from them kind of as an organization and for those individuals.
I'm definitely going to have much higher expectations of them going through into the next major. I think that this is a team with Mezzy basically taking the reins and trying to IGL and call at this kind of level. I think he's only going to get better as time goes on. It was great to see Crims, you know, the king himself, come out swinging and have some really big performances. That was really nice to see, winding back the years a little bit. But I also think they did run into an outsiders team that's looking pretty damn good right now. And with Na'Vi being knocked by the wayside, I think they have a genuine chance at this stage to potentially win the whole thing. I think we're in one of those very interesting situations where the 4 teams that remain, Mouse, Outsiders, Heroic, and Furia, all have a legitimate chance of winning the major. Now, sure, I think Furia are the team to beat because the crowd is basically like a 6th player. It's absolutely insane what it's doing for Furia, and they're clearly feeding off that energy in a very positive way. I'm not seeing many shaky moments from those guys. If anything, they're just stepping their game up, especially KEKW and Yuri. But I think every team actually has a chance. So, a bit of a different switch up here because obviously we're getting towards the end. I know that you have Fury going through in your pick'ems to win the whole thing. Off the performances that we've seen, though, because obviously those were made before the quarterfinals were played, do you still stand behind that decision, or do you maybe fancy a different team to actually win the whole thing now?
I would 100% stick with Furia. I think Na'Vi was the toughest challenge that they could potentially have faced in playoffs, and they beat them. And it wasn't, yeah, KEKW and Yuri were definitely the best performers, but every single one of the team were able to step up, were able to have impact, and were present on the server. And I think that's like a follow on from my point about Fnatic. It's like if you have all 5 players online and performing really well, you don't need to just have one person popping off and just carrying on their own back. And I think Furia have got the 5 parts right now, all showing up and all performing, that easily could power them to this major, especially with the crowd behind them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say a similar thing about Furia as well, but it feels as though they are a full 5-man unit that is firing on all cylinders right now. And I mean, you're seeing Drop have massive rounds, Art having those classic Art rounds that we know from years ago before they kind of got found out a little bit and it got a bit obvious. But then again, you could say, honestly, Mouse, all firing on all cylinders. Dexter had a couple of crazy performances throughout this major, especially in the quarterfinals against Cloud9 Outsiders. Fame, Jane, both been looking really good. And Heroic, today, they were looking on point. So I think we're in a really interesting spot to round off this major. And although everyone's pick'ems are in the toilet in terms of the Diamond Dream at this stage, I think there'll be very few people that have completely nailed this from start to finish. I'm kind of feel like I'm a little bit lucky in the regard that now I can sit back, don't care about pick'ems. I can just watch the games and just enjoy them for what they are. Thank you very much, Dualism. We'll call this one for now, and we'll see you guys next time to break down the semi-finals. So for now, we'll catch you later. Peace.